Hello, I'm Ninja Greg, and you're watching The Ninja Greg Show. And this is my review of the 2014 remake of Robocop. You're probably wondering why I'm in a different room now. Well, I'm in the process of moving some things around in my regular room, so it's a bit of a mess right now, and hard for me to, have my usual setup to record. So for the time being, I've moved to my mom's spare bedroom. Anyways, onto the review. This is going to be a slightly different review of than what I normally do, where I just, instead of telling you about the movie and telling you what I liked, what I didn't like, I'm going to be comparing this to the movie that, inspired this one, the original 1980s Robocop. Okay, so where to begin? Well, first let's start with the rating. The original was rated R. The remake was rated PG-13, so it's a bit toned down. I mean, the original was a little bit more action-oriented, and this one's a little bit more drama-oriented. Both are about, a Detroit police officer, Alex Murphy, who suffers a horrible accident or is somehow brutally injured to the point where he's at death's door and is only saved by having his body rebuilt with machine parts. But in the first movie, he was gunned down by a bunch of criminals, and he goes after them one by one and either kills them or throws them in jail. And in this remake, his car is kind of blown up by mobs who are working in conjunction with dirty cops, and he still ends up in pretty bad shape. And his mental condition after he becomes Robocop is also pretty different. In the original, he's pretty mechanical, just basically a efficient machine with the instincts and kind of creative thinking of a human being. In the remake, however, he is aware of what's happened to him, and he doesn't really become more machine-like until there's a part in this movie where they start downloading the entire criminal database into his mind, and it starts to overwhelm him. He starts to freak out, and so they drop his dopamine levels to almost non-existent, 2%, and with that little dopamine in his system, he becomes very mechanical and very stone-faced, but he's also pretty efficient. After they get him to calm down, they're ready to introduce him to the public, and he walks out there very, 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 very neutral because he's got virtually no emotions going on. And he's not saying hi to anybody, not shaking anyone's hand. He's just kind of scanning them, seeing, okay, non-threat, 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 no weapons, non-threat. And then in the crowd, he spots one guy wanted for murder, and within 60 seconds, arrests him right on the spot. Well, like I said, in the original, he pretty much starts out as the completely efficient, completely logical crime-stopping machine. And we don't see him act that way until sometime after it. And in the original, his more human half doesn't start to come into play until he starts dreaming and getting glimpses of who he was in his previous life. And it starts to mess with his programming a little. He's kind of torn between what he wants to do and what he has to do by his programming. And you do see a little bit of that in in this one. There's a scene where he tries to he's trying to go out on the job and stop some more crimes in progress, but you know, his wife, which I'll get to him in a little bit. She tells him that their son is not doing well in school. He's distressed and so on. So there's kind of a conflict between his programming and his emotions, and his emotions kind of come back after he goes to his house and kind of examines the crime scene, kind of Batman Arkham Asylum detective mode style, and analyzes everything that went on and searches his own database for some of the people responsible for it. So yeah, it kind of shares some of the elements of the original, but it definitely has its own flavor with kind of giving him his humanity right from the get-go. And as for the new look, they say it right in the beginning. The Michael Keaton playing the guy kind of responsible for one of the guys in charge of the company Omnicore instead of, well, they got the same logo as OCP, but it's basically the same company. But the reason why he's got that black look with the visor is because they wanted a more tactical thing, which I figured out right from the get-go. It's got more of a kind of a SWAT team kind of look, even though he's not technically on the SWAT team, but whatever. It's an aesthetics thing. But I did like how they kind of modernized the classic look and gave him that at the beginning. Now I wish they stuck with that, but whatever. They gave him the more matte black tactical look because it's 2014. You got a update from a movie that's at this point over 30 years old. Hell, maybe even 40. Now the story in the original is a little bit simpler. You know, police officer is badly injured, and Detroit's basically a hellhole full of crime, and the crime rate's through the roof, so, you know, extreme situations call for extreme measures, and you really can't get more extreme than a virtually unstoppable cyborg police officer, and he's struggling to regain his humanity, what little of it there is left. And in the remake, it's more dramatic. There's more on they play more on his humanity in the beginning. You know, they actually let him keep his family, and you kind of see the drama that they got to go through with having a loved one whose life has been changed dramatically. He's now more machine than man. But does that mean he's more human or more machine? It's kind of confusing and a little bit convoluted, and as a result, it kind of takes away from the action. But the action, that's not to say that the action in this movie isn't very good. When it does happen, it is quite good, but it just doesn't happen as frequently as it did in the as it did in the original. So yeah, the original is a little bit more action based, but with a simpler story that's easy to follow. This one's a little bit more drama with a somewhat convoluted story. There's this whole subplot about Sam Jackson playing this, like, I guess Anderson Cooper kind of character called Pat Novak, and he's got his own kind of show called the Novak something or other. I forget what. I don't really care, but it's clear it's supposed to be some kind of parallel to the biased news that the original had going on. So yeah, these two kind of, like I said, these two are kind of sharing similar elements, and the Pat Novak character is basically, he's pushing really hard for this program to to bring kind of robotic law enforcement into the U.S. because it's been implemented everywhere else in the world, and he's basically basically an America F yeah kind of guy. You know, real gung ho. Let's get the bad guys, shoot first and ask questions later kind of guy. But yeah, that's like I said, it's similar but kind of a different take on the same idea of the very biased news that leans one way and or the other. These movies also kind of do of a trade-off with their relationships. You know, in the original, Murphy had a strong. We see Murphy has a strong relationship with his partner, Officer Ann Lewis, and she's kind of the ones responsible for kind of helping bring back his seemingly lost humanity, and his family after his rebirth as Robocop has kind of disappeared. He doesn't really. Well, they disappeared in both the physical and kind of mental sense. You know, he goes to his house, he looks for them, they're not there, he has no clue where they are, and he hardly even remembers them. And in the remake, his relationship with his family is still there. I mean, they're the ones that are motivating him because he wants to make sure they're safe and they're taken well care of. And his relationship with Lewis, who's now played by a black dude, whatever. It doesn't really have as much of an impact on the story as it did in the original. So, like I said, there's kind of a trade-off there. It's either strong relationship with his partner or strong relationship with his family. So, it's so far these two are pretty similar movies, but they're just kind of have different flavors. So, which of these movies would I recommend? It depends what you're kind of in the mood for. Do you want a simple story with lots of action that's easy to follow, but kind of held together with strong bonds of friendship? Or do you want something a little bit more dramatic with strong familial ties? It's like, which flavor of Robocop do you want? Vanilla or chocolate? But yeah, I didn't think there was anything bad per se with this remake. It has similar enough elements to the original, but it's kind of doing its own thing. Now, yeah, it can feel a little cliched, what with the black and edgy and more badass design of Robocop and Sam Jackson, because Sam Jackson makes everything awesome. But the other one is a little cliche too. You know, it's an 80s movie, so it's an 80s action movie, so plenty of blood and F-bombs abound. So yeah, if you like cop themed action movies, I'm going to leave this one up to your personal taste. You can either have the simple story with lots of action, or the more dramatic, more human kind of story about. And both are about a man trying to regain. Well, no, one's trying to regain his humanity, one's trying to keep his humanity, I guess. So they both kind of have the same kind of struggles, just one's more action-oriented, one's more story-oriented. Anyways, which Robocop do you prefer? Let me know in the comments what you thought, and if you're new to this channel and you like what you see, don't forget to like, subscribe, and click that bell for notifications so you know whenever I put something new up. I'm Ninja Greg. You've been watching the Ninja Greg Show. I'll see you next time.